This segment of Bridge Street is sponsored by Overnight Publicity.
Learning to be a good leader can be a tough journey. Knowing the rights and wrongs to a tentative and meaningful leadership is like balancing on a tightrope without learning the true skill sets needed.
Yes, and joining us now to give us some helpful insight on what makes someone a good leader and to share insights from his latest book, Leading with Impact, is author and leadership expert Dan Jahn. Welcome to Bridge Street.
Good morning.
So I want to know, would you say great leaders are naturally born that way?
No, I think that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions and why so many people are afraid to step up and take leadership positions. They think it's just this weird, magical mystery that these iconic leaders come out of nowhere. Not true at all. Iconic leaders are not born, they're built. And you can build yourself into an iconic leader. It's just a choice, and then there's a skill set and a mindset to adopt and become an iconic leader. People live in fear, but there's plenty of ways to become a great leader.
Who are some of these leaders maybe from history that you think about as the great leaders that maybe people can use as an example?
You know, I think one of the most interesting ones that I really like to talk about, which always surprises people, is Genghis Khan. People talk about Genghis, this incredible warrior who conquered the known world, which he did. He was a warrior, absolutely, no doubt. But what made him an iconic leader is everything that came after that. This is a guy who invented the central banking system. He invented global diplomacy. He invented the concept of a courier system. He developed a global society, long surviving, that was a clear example of leadership. The warrior part was the early part of his life. It's everything that came afterwards where we learned, like, okay, it is possible for someone to actually lead the known world.
What about someone from today? Any examples?
I think a really interesting one that we have from a more current example is Steve Jobs. And here's a guy, I don't think anyone would argue, an absolute visionary, technology visionary, great insight into what the human condition was at the time. He starts a company called Apple. He knows he's not a great leader. In fact, he's actually sort of a terrible leader. A visionary, but a terrible leader. He even knows this about himself, so he brings in someone else. He brings in John Sculley from Pepsi to lead Apple. Well, Sculley fires Jobs. The guy loses his company. He's fired for bringing in a great leader who recognizes that Jobs himself is a terrible leader. What does he do? Does he give up? Does he hide? No, he goes out, he starts more companies, but more specifically, he learned how to become a leader. He took classes, he took workshops, he worked with mentors, he traveled the world, and he turned himself into an iconic leader. Comes back to Apple, and we all know what happens next, right? The first $1 trillion company, insights into technology and art and music and movies. So that's a really, I think, an interesting example of someone who was actually relatively successful as a terrible leader, but achieved massive success after turning himself into an iconic leader.
So how does this work with you? How do you blend in the old wisdom with modern ideas?
So that's kind of the way I've sort of developed what I call the iconic leadership matrix. And the idea here is we dig pretty deep into you as a person, but while we do that, we also dig pretty deep into what iconic leaders of the past and different cultures have had to say about leadership. If you look at the world today, I think we have a pretty distinct lack of iconic leadership. We have a lot of people in leadership positions that aren't really leaders. We have a global society that's very odd. We have this society of followers who find followers to find followers to find more followers. And you track it down, you find out the person at the core of this is someone doing TikTok dances. So we have a fundamental issue in our modern society of people being afraid to take on leadership positions. So what I do is I look to different ideas from the past, from Egyptian culture, from Native American traditions, from Western European traditions, and I find these nuggets and ideas on how to be a leader that come really from the days when we were tribal, right? When we had tribes and tribes had leaders. And each culture has a really interesting nugget about authenticity or leading with dynamism or coming forth with resilience in a response to massive incoming change. And I take those and I blend those with who you are as a person, who your company is. If we can think of your company as a person, what sorts of values does your company or your organization lead with? And we start to weave these ancient ideas of leadership in with modern insights from psychology and neurolinguistic programming to construct a new leader out of your foundation.
Yeah, very, very nice. We really appreciate you, Dan, stopping by Bridge Street this morning and helping us become better leaders.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
If you would like to learn more about Dan along with his journey, or maybe purchase his book, Leading with Impact, you can head to Dan Jahn, that's JAHN.com. This segment has been sponsored by Overnight Publicity.